Welcome back to Mr. Tilley's Mathemagics. In another video that we did a while ago, we looked at some of the key vocab in algebra to identify what is what in our algebraic equations and our expressions. If you don't remember that video on algebra key vocab, go back, check it out. Make sure you write down the definitions in your own words. That way you can actually relate to it and you can refer to them later as well. So in this video, we are going on with adding algebraic terms, and it's very similar to actually subtracting algebraic terms as well. So if we get time, we'll tack that one on at the end as well. Now, one of the most important things we need to remember here is that age-old saying of not being able to compare apples and oranges. In algebra, it's very similar. Before we can begin to add or subtract algebraic expressions, we need to make sure that we have like terms. Now, like terms, they can have different coefficients. And remember, the coefficient is that number that's attached to the variable. But it's super important that those variables actually remain the same. They can't be different. In a later video, we may get into the fact that you have variables in different orders, but for now, all we want to make sure is that single variables are exactly the same. So let's just consider the fact that we may have a bucket. Let's say this is our bucket right here, and in our bucket, we only want red apples. So these red apples are going to be represented by the variable. They're going to be represented by the variable R. So in this bucket, the only other things that can influence or interact with this bucket is another variable labeled R. And this is mostly because we want our bucket to only have red apples, nothing more. If all of a sudden we start to put green apples in there, it's no longer a bucket of just red apples. Only R's can interact with R's. So if we were to represent the value in this bucket algebraically, we would see that we have we've got three red apples in the bucket, and each red apple represents R. So we see that our term here, we've got a coefficient, we've got a variable, and as always by default here, it's a positive, but we don't need to put that in. Now, if we want to add to this, we may all of a sudden decide, you know what, I'm not happy with just 3 red apples. I'm going to add another 2 red apples into my bucket. Now, algebraically speaking, if we want to write this, we would then add, because we know that the plus sign is for add, and we've added another 2 R. This is an expression representative of our recent addition of 3 red apples and 2 red apples. So 3R plus 2R will give us 5R. So some of the most important parts to remember there is, remember, you cannot add or subtract terms that do not have the same variable. The first thing you need to consider is, I have an R there, I have an R there. Yes, I can add those together. From there, you know your result is going to be R because you've got like terms up here. After that, you conduct the 3 plus 2 and you get 5. All of a sudden, you had 3 R's, you added 2 to it, and now you've got 5. So, moving on from that, let's say we want to go the other way. We have 5 R's in our bucket, but we want to take 2 R's out. Well, that's going to be very similar. We're going to consider, first of all, are they like terms? Yes, they are. I have a variable and then the same variable. They can be different coefficients, but this one is negative 2r because we've got the 2 there, the negative there, and we have a positive 5r. Well, what is 5r? Take 2r. Well, if in our bucket, we then go get rid of 1, 2, we're left with 3. And all of a sudden, we have 5r, take 2r equals 3r. Keep in mind, very important factor here, same variables, all the way through. These are all like terms because they have the same variable attached to the coefficients. Hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, please write them down. I'm sure your teacher has a whole bunch of activities and practice for you to do in class. Please ask the questions, and best of luck in the future.